Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. Live today from New York City, not my normal haunt. And today we have a really special guest. I couldn't be happier to welcome Rajiv Ramaswamy, who is the president and CEO of Nutanix. So let me just bring you forward. There we. Whoops, that was a little too far. Let's go there. So thank you for joining us.
Great to be on with you, Karen.
Terrific. So maybe we could start, for those that aren't familiar, you could just tell us a little bit about Nutanix.
Sure. Nutanix is a software company. We're a cloud software company. And what we do in very simple terms is we provide a software platform on which companies of all kinds can run all their applications and manage all their data wherever they may choose to do so. They could be doing this inside their data centers. They could be doing this in their edges, if you're a retailer, manufacturer, for example, or you could be running some of these applications and managing data in the public clouds, whether it's AWS, Azure, Google, or the like. And we provide that single platform. It helps companies simplify how they manage their complex environments, helps them go digital, helps them use their modern applications and simplify how they manage their infrastructure in a very significant way.
Yeah. And no small task of that in and of itself, but super successful. I know you just released your fiscal Q1 24 earnings, the 24% year-over-year annual or ACV, annual contract value growth, and a 30% increase in ARR. So congrats on that. You want to say a little bit more about the reasoning behind that success?
Yes, I think fundamentally, of course, if you look at the trends in the industry, I would call out perhaps three trends that are leading us here. First is every company is becoming a software company in some form or fashion because
Yes.
they're all going digital, right? It's a top imperative for almost every company. You may be in financial services, you may be in healthcare, you may be in defense, it doesn't matter. And as they go digital, it's all about new apps and the data that they manage. And there's a lot of that happening. There's going to be more new apps built over the next couple of years than in the last 40 years. And all of these apps are generating a lot of data
Mm.
or consuming a lot of data. AI, for example, is the latest buzz. We'll get to that. But so they have to really figure out how to build these applications and run them in an easy way. And that's a secular trend. It's
Mm.
independent of what's going on in the macro and so forth. People need to do this, and we make it very easy for them to do it. And that's really one of the core drivers. A couple of other drivers, I would say, the competitive dynamics are somewhat favorable. One of our largest competitors, one that I respect immensely, used to work for, just got bought by Broadcom, and
Mm.
that's VMware, just getting bought by Broadcom. And VMware, historically a very innovative company, a lot of mission critical success at major enterprises. But now the relationship between customers and Broadcom is going to be different, right? Broadcom is looking to optimize and maximize the value they can extract over the next few years. So it's a different relationship. So many companies are looking at how to reduce their risk, and so that's another tailwind for us. We're continuing to grow in terms of our partnerships in the market. So our latest partnership is with Cisco. I think a company that we all
Mm.
know well, and they have chosen to exit their own offering in the space, and they're reselling our offering in the market, which is good for us. And then we have these tailwinds around AI, for example, which are long term. As companies start doing AI and figuring out how to use that in a mission critical way, AI has to run where the data is, and we do that pretty
Mm.
well. We provide an easy platform to make all of that happen. So you've got all these multiple trends that are causing good tailwinds for us, and we're executing as well. We've gone through a business model transformation as a software company to move to a subscription company, and we're seeing the benefits from that transformation as well.
Yeah. Wow, so many threads to pull on there. First, let me just say congratulations on the Cisco partnership. I would say game changer, except you're such a large company. I'm sure it's just additive fuel to the rocket ship fire, which is
Thank you.
great. But maybe we could talk a bit about the transition that the company has gone through from a hardware company, I think, to software to now build for cloud. You could talk about what that going through that transition was like.
Yes, my advice to anybody going through that kind of a transition is do it when you're private. Doing it when you're public
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
much, much, much harder.
Yeah.
And we went through that. We took the gloves off, and for the right reasons. And other
Mhm.
companies have gone through that as well. But for us, when we got started, uh, it was really a software company, but we had to package it along with hardware in a form of an appliance
Mhm.
because that's the easiest way for us to get into the market. As we grew more mature and we started getting traction, we realized that we don't need to bundle those two together. We could let customers choose their hardware of choice, and then we just sell the software. And so that's the first transition we made for good reason. And now we have, not just, hardware from one vendor, but customers can choose their choice. So they can pick HP, they can pick Dell, they can pick Cisco, they can pick Supermicro, they can pick whoever they want, Lenovo, anybody. So that was the first move, and that was a relatively easy transition. It helped improve our gross margins, made it into a software company. But then the next transformation was we realized that our customers no longer are tied to the hardware. And so we don't need to couple our hardware to the software anymore. I mean, the software to the hardware anymore. And we could create a consumption-based, I shouldn't say consumption, but subscription-based offering that would basically align customers' interests with our interests very well. Because what this means is that customers get a lot more flexibility. They can choose to do a 1 year, 3 year, whatever they like. And our success is tied to their success, because at the end of that term, they have to renew, and they're only going to renew if they're happy and they're successful with what they're trying to do. So it aligns our interest. It creates more lifetime value. So we decided to go through that transformation back in our fiscal year 2018. And now we're seeing the benefit of that, because when you start going through the transformation, initially what you're going to see is a drop in revenue, drop in free cash flow, because you're getting less upfront. And then it starts building up again when all the stuff you sold starts getting renewed. And that renewal for us is a good thing, because our company prides itself on customer delight. And our net promoter score is 90 plus for the last 7 years, which is among the highest, in almost among all companies. And so what that leads to is customers are very happy with our products. Our gross revenue retention is north of 90%. And so they renew, and the renewal is a relatively low cost processing for us. So we don't have to spend as much sales effort on getting the renewal. So that creates a lot of leverage on the bottom line. So that's the benefit of the subscription transformation. We are seeing that now as we've gone through most of it over the last several years. And now we're seeing the growth in revenue, the growth in free cash flow, ARR, all of that you're seeing now as we come out of this.
Yeah. Well, so much there that you created to go well for you, not the least of which is this renewal rate, because that's the fuel for SaaS, right?
Absolutely.
Is because you're not as sticky in a SaaS-based model as you were before from a customer standpoint, unless you've got customer sat. So that's quite an amazing number. Let's talk a little bit. You said earlier one of the sort of the wind in the sails here was AI, which of course I think the Oxford Dictionary may have chosen Riz as the word for the year. I would have chosen Gen AI, but maybe you can talk a little bit about the impact that AI is having on you and your industry.
Yeah, I think like most companies, for us, I look at AI in terms of 3 dimensions. First, as we sell our products, every company out there and every conversation I've had with CIOs over the last 6 to 9 months, AI has been a top of mind topic for them. They're all looking to see how they can leverage AI. And so for us, AI is creating a whole new slew of applications that companies are doing. And we'd like to be the platform. We're a good platform to run those applications. And that's how we monetize AI for us. So that's the first track. The second track is around how can we use AI internally? And this is, again, what most companies are doing to make our processes more efficient, more automated. And so, for example, in our customer service, which is a very easy use case, we're looking to see how we can use GPT to create faster co-piloting, faster assistive troubleshooting, and be able to respond to customer queries much faster and with more accuracy. And so we can really help our support engineers become a lot more efficient. And that's just one example. But that's the second vector. How do we become more efficient? And the third vector is how do we use AI to improve our products? And for example, we gather a lot of information about what customers are deploying, and we can use that insights to really help them in terms of optimizing their environment and getting things to run better for them. So that's an example of how we can use AI inside of one of our products to help our customers. So these are all different vectors and dimensions, and almost every company these days is thinking about how they should be using AI to get themselves to be more efficient, more automated. And I would say broadly, there's about 4 different use cases that we're seeing in the world for Gen AI in our enterprise company space. The first one is customer service, like we talked about. Let's see, bots, chatbots, but automation. Second is everything to do with documents, document search, document analysis, document retrieval, document summarization, a whole set of things there. The third is fraud detection. And the fourth is co-piloting, assistive ability in a lot
Mm.
of things, whether you're writing code, for example, if you're a developer, or whether you're a pharmaceutical researcher and trying to get you some help. So these are the four categories of applications that we see people are interested in.
Mm. I'm also beginning to see sort of a recognition of how we use AI to assist with leadership.
Mhm.
And I think the missing component and the component that human leaders will always bring is emotional intelligence. And there's a new book out that sort of speaks to this. But I'm just beginning to see that, and I'm curious, have you used AI in any particular way in terms of your own leadership?
I have not, Karen. This is new to me, but I could kind of see this. I mean, I think for many of us as leaders, the empathy piece is really important. And yes, there's a piece that's all about running the business, getting stuff done, operationally managing companies. But at the end of the day, it's all about working with people. And a company is successful if the people are happy and the people are productive and they enjoy being there and they give their best. And so I think empathetic leadership is important for that. So I haven't really thought through, honestly, how AI could help there. But this is an open, interesting discussion and debate. So
Yeah. I think now it's mostly giving us information, right? Just like it is for customer service in some way. And then over time, sort of see where that goes. But I think AI assisted leadership, maybe where we're headed. Just on the leadership thread, you've recently made this transition from COO to CEO when you became the CEO at Nutanix. What was that transition like for you? What are the major differences in those two roles for you?
yeah, I would say even as a COO, you tend to be a jack of many trades, but it's fewer trades than what you would have to do when you're a CEO. There's just a lot more constituents. So a few changes. I mean, from my vantage point of view, as a CEO, you still report to the CEO, so you still have a boss that you can go to and get some air cover from and advice and so forth. When you're a CEO, sort of the buck stops there, and you have your board, of course, but the board is really there in an advisory role and governance role, not to operate the company on a daily basis.
Right.
So it tends to be a bit lonely, and you end up developing, for me, a set of mentors and sponsors that I talk to get advice in my network. But that's one difference. The second difference, I think, is there's a number of constituents that you have to manage. Now, you have to manage, of course, investors more directly, customers, of course, investors, your own people, your board. So there's just more constituents to manage, and there's just more diversity of stuff that you do every day as a CEO compared to what you do in any functional role for that matter.
Yes, that's really interesting. I think about the COO as the jack of all trades, but it's a sort of a jack of all trades from an internal focus, maybe, where the CEO has to add, as you say, this big set of constituents that are more externally focused.
Yeah, and that
Um,
depends on the COO, by the way. I mean, depends on
mm,
the role, right? Different companies have different kinds of COOs. You're right. Traditionally, a CEO was an internal focus role, but my prior CEO was not an internal focus role. It was very much,
mm,
I was talking to customers all the time. I was talking to the press and analysts. So it wasn't. It was sort of a different kind of a role, but it was still a functional role in the sense that I didn't own sales. It was I had product, all the products
yes.
and internal cloud services and everything that we were doing, but did not include sales and marketing. So it's still a functional role, but a mix of external and internal.
Yeah, delivering on the promise that sales
Yeah.
made. So we'll leave that there because that could be a whole topic in and of itself. So since you've come into the role of CEO, I saw that you've just recently publicly released a goal of striving for $3 billion in ARR in fiscal year 27 and 20% year-over-year growth among other targets.
Yeah.
Can you talk about sort of what's next for Nutanix and how you'll reach these goals?
Yeah, I mean, I think we go through this process of understanding and planning for the next few years. And I mean, this is primarily to get the company aligned around a direction in terms of where we're going and measuring the outcomes clearly. So the vision that we have is for being a hybrid multi-cloud leader, because that's really where, a platform for companies to run apps everywhere. And so it starts with what we're doing. And our mission is that, right? To be the hybrid multi-cloud leader, to simplify how companies can run their applications and data. Now, what does that translate into from a specific set of business milestones that we need to get to? And that's where the financial component of that comes through. So at the end of the day, what we've very focused on is continuing to drive what I call sustainable, profitable growth, which means continuing to drive top line and do so as quickly and as efficiently as we can, while also making sure we continue to drive profitability. And And so that blend is what we manage. And as we look at that mix, we are sort of a company that does both. We are going to drive 20% growth. We are going to generate more free cash flow as we go forward. And so that combination is what we've been focused on. And we feel like, given the market opportunity that we have in front of us, 60, $70 billion TAM, and we are, today from a revenue perspective, 2 billion and roughly and 1.7 billion ARR. And there's a lot of market out there for us to go after. And the question is, how quickly can we go after it? How can we capture it? And we felt that, I think 20% ARR growth is quite achievable for us in terms of our ability to do that in a sustainable way over the next few years. And we can do that in a more efficient way than we've been doing in the past, thanks to things like renewals continuing to grow right with us, and driving continued leverage, more OpEx discipline. And so that's what led us to this goal: 3 billion by FY27, $800 million in free cash flow, and a rule of 40 plus company. And a rule of 40, by the way, is that really that mix of both top line growth rate and free cash flow margin, right? You sum up the two, and you need that to be greater than 40. And if you're greater than 40, then that's considered to be very good in the software industry. And we were roughly maybe about 29 last year, in our last fiscal year. So we will take that up, and that drives, of course, investor valuation and appreciation for our shareholders.
Yeah, you just made every CFO who's listening very happy getting the rule of 40, and it's so important in a software company to pay attention to both top line and bottom line. And I think sustainable, profitable growth. Maybe that's the other candidate for word of the year in 2023 is the profitable piece of that.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like you've got the engine running now. I also wanted to speak with you about sort of the tagline for my business, which is, from a leadership standpoint, the tagline for my business is up and to the right, because that's the spot on the 2x2 matrix where we always want to be, right?
Yes.
And just to think about your career, your now very successful career leading you into this leadership position of CEO of this large global company. Was there a moment in your career or an event when you knew that you were going to be successful as a leader in growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, I wouldn't say there was a single moment, but there were some significant
Hmm.
transitions during my career that sort of led me to this. I would say when I started out my career, I was a research guy. I used to work on original stuff, publish
Hmm.
papers, patents, and then built a product, and then gradually assumed a manager role, started leading teams, and so forth. And that was the first part of my career for quite a while. I was still very much into the technology. It was optical networking for me, an expert in that domain for many years, and grew to be a CTO for Cisco in that domain after doing a startup and so forth. But then at that time there was a crucial switch for me, which was I got my first general manager role. One of my mentors, gave me an opportunity, and it wasn't even something that I had planned for or anything. But all of a sudden, I found myself managing a business. It was the optical business, which I knew very well, of course, from a domain expertise perspective, but not as a business leader. So that was the first transformation for me from a technologist to a business leader. And that was certainly something that I had to learn, and I had to broaden my aperture in terms of looking at multiple facets from a business perspective, not from a
Hmm.
technology perspective. So that was I would say, a good inflection point for me. And from then, it's
Hmm.
been a series of different roles where I realized that I no longer have to be a domain expert. That first job, certainly I was a domain
Yes.
expert, okay, but
Right.
afterwards you sort of learn that, okay, you've got to be smart enough to pick up the business nuances and understand the dynamics in the industry, understand the competitive market lens, what you're up against, what you need to drive, but you don't have to be a technology expert. And so subsequent to that first general manager role, I was able to take on other general manager roles in areas where I truthfully wasn't the subject matter expert, but knew enough to be dangerous and effective. And that's kind of what led to a series of these general manager roles, followed by this CEO role at VMware, and then now here. And from then on, I would say it was a gradual transition. You just take on, keep moving further and further up to the right, as you say.
That's very insightful of you. It's a hard thing for people to let go of being the subject matter expert, right? That's the whole thing about what got you here won't keep you here or won't get you there,
Absolutely.
depending on who says it. You have to let go of sort of that competency, if you will, if you're gonna pick up new things. What what helped you be successful, or why do you think you were successful in making that transition? Did you have mentors who helped you with that? Was it something you intuitively picked up?
Yeah, I think of course I had mentors and I still have mentors,
Mhm.
and they're so crucial to help me out whenever I have things to talk about and discuss, and they may be sensitive topics. I have a set of current CEOs and former CEOs who I can call upon for help, and it's just
Yes.
fantastic to have that, who are mentors and sponsors for me, which is great. And I try to do the same in terms of repaying that down as well forward with other people who I'm always accessible for. But I think for me, it was, I think, a few things that I would say help me. I'm always inherently curious. I read a lot. I want to learn. It's a learning mindset. So for
Mhm.
me, every time as I look back at my career, it's always been a journey of continuing to learn and learn and learn. And even today, as a CEO, I'm learning. And yeah, what you may be learning may be very different, but you are learning. And as you learn, you assimilate new stuff. You're able to pick up the gist of what you need to know and become effective. So that learning piece for me was very important, number one. And number two, I think one of the attributes of like every step or every job that I've taken, I would say has had a couple of attributes for me. The first is that I do bring enough information to our background knowledge to be somewhat effective coming in.
Mm.
But that alone is not sufficient, right, for me. On top of that, what you want to do is you want to add a set of new challenges and new learnings, and that's what makes every step in the career, where it's something that you can bring in to the table and be effective, but also learn a lot, and that puts you, makes you ready for the next step.
Yeah.
And it's that combination. I think I would say that's been the characteristic of almost every role I've taken during my career.
I'm thrilled that you mentioned curiosity. I've heard that from so many of the C-suite leaders that I've spoken with, and certainly it's been a big part of my own journey. It's just this. It's not just an ability; it's sort of a need to keep learning as we go.
Yes, I mean, I can tell you, like, I didn't know much about AI, for example, coming in, even though I was in computer science and electric engineering. But I've certainly learned a lot about Gen AI over the last 6 months, more so than I knew in the last 30 years before that. And it's just one example, but that's a technology area. But even more so than that, by the way, I would just say I think you learn how to work with people, and I think that's a very important thing for I think anybody who's managing teams to be successful. You have to be an effective people leader. You have to be able to hire the best talent, not feel
Mhm.
insecure about hiring people who are better than you, frankly, and giving them the rope in terms of making them successful. Because if they are successful, then you will be successful. And that's the other learning for many of us who are technical leaders. Yeah, you want to be the best at what you do. But now you realize that you are going to be successful if you can make your team successful. And if they are successful, and you want to hire the best people because that's going to make you successful. So that's sort of a learning I think that came along the way, and I've always tried to build a great team, empower them, and give them the ropes to be successful, which makes you successful selfishly.
Yeah. Well, I think you've just encapsulated one of the great secrets to your success. Thank you very much for sharing that with us and for sharing part of the Nutanix story. I wish you and your team all the best going forward. Thanks for being with us today.
No, thank you, Karen. It was a pleasure here being with you. Thank you.